This is a debate in which we all have a duty to speak, and it is simply inconceivable from where we are stood now that in the last century, within 1,000 miles of this house, unspeakable evil worked to systematically destroy an entire people, those who opposed them, the disabled, and those who just wanted to love freely. There is something distinctly perverse and pernicious about anti-Semitism, particularly its manifestation in the creation of conspiracies that feed off division and envy. It is supremely disheartening that between January and June last year, the Community Security Trust recorded the highest ever level of anti-Semitic incidents in a 6-month period. And this can leave none of us in any doubt that we have to do more to combat the malign force of anti-Semitism. The terrors of our past must never become the fears of our future. On Remembrance Day, we say lest we forget, not just for the fallen, but for those who were killed in barbarous acts of tyranny. The Holocaust Memorial and Education Centre by Parliament will serve as a stark reminder of our enduring responsibility to avert such atrocities again. We must also look to the past for inspiration. This country has a proud history of advocating on behalf of the world's most vulnerable. In 1938, the then Home Secretary Samuel Hoare pledged, "There will be no government among all these governments more sympathetic than the government of the United Kingdom, no government more anxious to solve the plight of the Jewish people." Mr Deputy Speaker, 1 year later, a family in Oakham, in my constituency of Rutland and Melton, took in an 8-year-old evacuee during the Second World War. Upon meeting their guest, they discovered that she travelled from her home in Berlin to London in 1939 to live with a distant relative as part of the Kindertransport. She was then evacuated to Oakham, as so many others across the country were. This family in Oakham gave this young girl a home, treated her as their own, and ensured she got the education she had so far been deprived. Tragically, both her parents were senselessly murdered in Auschwitz-Birkenau, as no doubt she would have been if the British government had not timely reacted to Kristallnacht. That girl now lives in America with her husband, 3 children and 4 grandchildren. 8 lives saved. Now, we in this House have an intrinsic responsibility to reflect on history, to prevent it from repeating itself, and respond with swift resolve to atrocities. The Kindertransport saved abundant human potential, and it is only when we truly stand together that our society can decidedly flourish. As Elie Wiesel said, neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor and never the tormented. And I commend my colleagues on both sides of the House who have so bravely spoken about anti-Semitism with such conviction, from small everyday interactions to those who courageously stood up at great personal and professional cost to systemic anti-Semitism on a national level. But we still see genocide and hatred. The Rohingya, the Yazidis, the Uyghur, these people who are being massacred, it is still happening, and I will always be someone in this House who will speak out for these communities who are too often being forgotten or pushed under the carpet. We've also spoken today about the genocide in Srebrenica. That is another one that people still shamefully refuse to admit took place. Now, a few years ago, I had the utter privilege of going to Srebrenica, and I apologise if my voice fails me at this time. But I travelled with members of our armed forces who served in Srebrenica, who served in Bosnia at the time. And going with them back to Bosnia for the first time since they served was the privilege of my life, and one of the hardest things and a memory I will always take with me.
Well, my honourable friend.
Yes.
Allow me. I share her recollection of the time. I didn't have the privilege of travelling in the way she had, but I was Special Advisor to the Defence and Foreign Secretary during that period. And the failure of the United Nations and the troops there to prevent that appalling massacre, which undoubtedly amounted to genocide with the thousands of people concerned, is something that must continue to disturb us and concentrate our minds on peacekeeping and the necessity of having the capacity, when we're engaged on peacekeeping, to make sure that we are not responsible as an international community in any way for being party to events.
Thank you for allowing me to intervene. I thank you, Deputy Speaker. I led the first troops to go into Srebrenica in April 1993. My men was surrounded. About 20 people were killed and a couple of my soldiers were wounded. We established Srebrenica, and as a result of that, it was declared a safe zone. I'm sorry it's going on a bit, but I want to put the record straight. I pleaded to keep British soldiers in Srebrenica because I felt we could protect the people, and we were ordered out. And 2 years later, after we'd left, the massacre occurred. I'm sure that if we had been present, the massacre of 8,400 men and boys might not have occurred. Might not have occurred. But let's get the record straight that actually the people that went in took huge risks, and we did not want to leave because we felt our duty was to protect people. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention that says far more eloquently than I ever could the exact same sentiment that I share with him. And going to Bosnia, I saw the work the UN is doing still to bring together the remnants of those who were massacred. Small bones, piecing them together to work out those who were buried, whose bodies were purposely moved from place to place to make it more hard to prove that these people had been murdered. I attended the funeral of those whose bodies had been brought back together. I met with the widows of Srebrenica, and I encourage everyone in this House to go to Bosnia to learn and to experience all I can to try and learn as much as they can. So there is so much more we all need to do to eviscerate hatred and division within our own communities and refuse to see history repeat itself. And we each have a duty to change the level of debate at our dinner tables, in the shops, on WhatsApp, on the tube, within our own families. That is how we change things. None of us can stand idly by, and we do have a duty to do more. It is only by talking to each other, by creating understanding and empathy that comes through that dialogue, that we build stronger communities who refuse to accept hatred and division. Now, violent extremism feeds on the everyday indifference and hatred that we refuse to challenge, that we hear and dismiss, or worse, laugh away. And I have seen what that hatred breeds in my career. The demonisation, the violence, the torture, the rape and the murder. No more. We must all say never again. We must all commit to build empathy, to build understanding, and to say no to hatred. And that is the commitment I make today, and the commitment that I hope all my colleagues will make, and that everyone in this country will make, because this country deserves better, the world deserves better, and we need to raise our voices because we have the privilege and the ability to do so. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.